Today we're doing a full breakdown of the Choose Your Legends 8 banner in Fire Emblem Heroes. We've got more details on some of the new skills. This year's CYL winners are female Robin, Felix, Bernadetta, and Alfonse. We call these special versions Brave Olds because that was the theming behind the very first CYL group. This banner has no 4-star focus unit, but it does have 4 spark opportunities. You can get 1 winner every 40 summons, but only 1 time each. The CYL banner does last a month, so you got a lot of time to save up more orbs. First up, Brave Female Robin. Her outfit is technically new, but it's also the same design as last year's Brave Male Robin, both drawn by Wada Sachiko, who does amazing art. This outfit is meant to be Robin as Chrome's proper tactician, most likely after the events of Awakening. Female Robin has the same ceremonial sword that Male Robin has, but she instead will be using a tome. As a unit, Brave Female Robin's a colorless infantry mage. For stats, she has 40 HP, 45 attack, 47 speed, 30 defense, and 26 res. Robin has speed and res super boons and 188 base stat total. This indeed confirms we're in Generation 9 BST. Because the last armored mage was a while ago, this Robin is the highest BST mage in the game currently. She's super fast and has some defensive stats to take a hit or two. For old skills, Robin has Flare, the stronger Luna special for infantry mages, which can also heal if needed. Like her male counterpart, she also has attack and speed finish 4 for easy stats with extra damage and healing. Robin's Exalt's Tome tactic has 14 might. If a rally or movement assist is used by Robin and there's no Divine Vein Ice tiles currently applied by her team, then deploy Divine Vein Ice to tiles 2 spaces away from the target ally after movement for 1 turn. You can't deploy the ice terrain onto enemy occupied spaces or destructible structures. You can overwrite enemy ice terrain though, because that's a normal Divine Vein feature. Now another way for Robin to deploy ice terrain is after she acts or at the start of enemy phase in Aether Raid's defense. If there are no ice tiles already made by Robin, then deploy a Divine Vein Ice to tiles 2 spaces away. Let's stop here because Divine Vein Ice is a new terrain type. Essentially, it's a deployable obstacle. Foes cannot pass through them, but they can be destroyed in 1 hit. Robin's allies can pass through the ice terrain though, and if they are on the ice terrain when attacked, then the ice tiles will remain after. There are no comet perks involved here, but stopping movement is going to be pretty crazy. Robin basically forces the enemy to waste actions destroying the ice, or they need to risk splitting up with things like warping. This essentially gives you a lot more control over the battlefield, although it is possible dancers might mess things up with extra actions. Because you can overwrite Divine Veins, I honestly could see teams bringing more Divine Vein units like Brave Corrin or Lumera. They can move first to deploy their own terrain and destroy the ice. Now since Robin can deploy Divine Vein Ice by using movement assist, I could see something like Smite being used. You smite an ally, deploy the ice, and then the ally can retreat backwards through the ice. It's not a comet perk, but any movement based mechanics are always tricky to gauge. I could see this being pretty frustrating to fight against. Now moving on, Exalt's Tactics' actual comet perk includes accelerated specials. If Robin's above 25% health, she inflicts attack, speed, and res debuffs on the foe equal to 5 plus the number of allies within 3 rows or 3 columns times 3. If Robin has 3 allies in range, she can inflict minus 14 debuffs. In addition, Robin neutralizes any stat debuffs in combat, she has no guard, and on special trigger, Robin gets full DR piercing. Nothing super crazy here. Robin will focus on special spamming again, and she has Slang plus no guard to help out. Ignoring any stat debuffs is pretty clutch, and Robin inflicts a bunch of debuffs as long as she has friends. For her unique B skill, according to plan, every turn of above 25% HP, Robin grants plus 6 attack and speed field balls and the Kanto 1 status to nearby allies for 1 turn. At the same time, she inflicts Hush Spectrum and Panic onto the closest foes, and it spreads 2 spaces from there. For combat, if above 25% health, Robin inflicts minus 5 attack, speed, and res on the foe. She then has the same true damage and flat door effect as Legendary Claw's recent Fallen Star 2. Robin wants positive statuses on herself and negative statuses on the foe. If you have 5 total, she can get up to 25 max true damage and 15 flat DR. With Kanto 1, Hush Spectrum, and Panic, Robin already can get 3 statuses for this skill. Try to get 2 more for extra damage and defense. On top of her Ice Wall, Robin buffs allies with attack and speed and Kanto, more options to retreat behind the ice. For those not familiar with Hush Spectrum, this was on the dual young female Robin earlier this year. It's a strong status that inflicts minus 5 stats on the enemy and inflicts Scowl on them. Robin can help against pre-charged damage specials, and if the foe has Slang, then Robin's team will actually get minus 1 instant cooldown to match up. Hush Spectrum is very good to have, and this Robin deploys it passively, already a solid support with her ice terrain. Robin's new inheritable C skill is called Creation Pulse. This skill requires an active penalty on the foe. It grants plus 3 attack and speed, and if using an offensive special, it grants minus X instant cooldown before your first attack. X is the number of active negative status effects on the foe with a max of 2 statuses. This means Creation Pulse can grant -2 instant cooldown. This is essentially a times pulse offshoot. It's usable by all infantry. The -2 cooldown potential is obviously just better than regular times pulse's -1 cooldown. The instant cooldown can also offset scowl effects. Another use for this skill would be with Special Spiral. Literally recharge a 4 cooldown special after the first proc. You could run this with Vantage as well. Now Creation Pulse is definitely good, but requires a penalty. I would say it's more of a side grade because there are still plenty of uses for times pulse 4 and pulse up. Overall though, if you got penalties and the enemy can't cleanse them, then by all means it's a great new cooldown option. Brave Female Robin will introduce all new tactics thanks to Divine Vein Ice. Deployable destructible objects are going to be interesting. For example, enemies can't warp onto the ice terrain, so it's effectively another way to control warping. If a defense team has Robin and Warp Bubble, you can't exactly just get into Gale Force without either destroying the ice or getting past somehow. I do feel like Robin may encourage bringing your own Divine Veins to overwrite hers. Easier said than done though. Now besides the Ice Ring, Robin also provides decent support. +6 attack and speed and Kanto is always good. Her Spectrum is quite strong still and even got Panic. For her own combat, Robin uses her 2 penalties to get -2 instant cooldown with Creation Pulse, discharges Slaying Flare, and her Tome gives it full DR Piercing. Yesterday, I said Hush Spectrum would allow Robin to counter scale if the foe had Slaying. I forgot the Hush Spectrum instant cooldown happens when the enemy attacks, so that's not true. Unfortunately, that means Robin is still weak to Scowl herself if you're going for the Flare one-shot. If she can double, she has no guard though to ensure Flare is ready for the second hit. But Robin doesn't have no follow-up, so that would be nice to have. She might be able to take a hit with her high amounts of attack debuffs and flat DR, but without percent DR, she's still definitely vulnerable. Robin's assist skill choice is important here. If you go to a rally, the Ice Ring pops up around the ally. If you use something like Reposition or Smite, the ice terrain appears after the ally is moved. You do need to plan a little unless you just end turn or attack with Robin first. For some other skills, I'm sure some people are going to be trying Close Bonus Doubler. You could even go Remote Sparrow for percent DR, although for doubling, again, no follow-up would be ideal. Robin needs Creation Pulse to charge her Flare, but if you don't need it, then you could opt for more support like Infantry No Follow 4. You could also use Pledge or Oath Self-Boss, maybe Fatal Smoke. However, kinda tough to beat a pre-charged DR Piercing Flare against most threats. For Circuit Seals, you could run the Attack and Defense Finish Seal for extra true damage, Bonus Doubler is fun, Flashing Blade if you need more cooldown, Blade Session for more attack and speed, or something like Attack and Speed Ideal works too. You could also do a Squad Ace Seal. For the most part, these Brave units are pretty much ready to go out of the box, especially with their new inheritable skills. Brave Female Robin will be quite scary if you don't bring Scowl or have unpierceable percent DR. Even if she's not the absolute strongest, she brings new tactics via Divine Vein Ice, and another shot with Hush Spectrum. Very interesting unit who I feel is going to cause some trouble. Next up is Brave Felix. He's dressed up as a 3 Houses Mortal Savant, with his time skip color scheme and the Crest of Fordarius on the front. Felix will be wielding the Levin Sword, most likely because the Mortal Savant is supposed to be a magic swordsman. As a unit, Brave Felix is a sword infantry with 40 HP, 47 attack, 48 speed, 35 defense, and 29 res. He has a speed super boon and actually breaks the 47 base speed tie we've been at for quite a while. Due to Dragon Flowers though, Felix is not the fastest, but he's right behind the top. For old skills, Felix has the new Gust special, the Recon on Speed Scaling Damage special with unpierceable 40% DR if specials are ready, and Felix wins a speed check. He will combo that percent damage reduction with attack and speed excels flat DR. Felix's new Levin Sword opens the way for a official double slaying effect. He gets accelerated specials with -2 cooldown permanently. This is also a distant counter sword and it has adaptive damage. If the foe has more than 75% HP or Felix is solo or slash next to one ally, then he gets bonus stats equal to 5 plus 15% of speed at the start of combat. He'll also have no guard for a consistent special charging and then 50% DR piercing on every attack. New Levin Sword is a very juiced DC weapon. It gives Felix DR piercing and the double slaying effect means Gust is on 1 cooldown to start. You can't go below 1 cooldown for max special count. You can, however, add Emblem Marth for a triple slaying. If you want a 1 cooldown AoE special, then Felix can get it. 2 cooldown Aether, 2 cooldown Gale Force. There is some wild potential here, and despite everything else on this banner, this is the most concerning thing to me. How long before double slaying makes its way onto other units? For Felix's unique B skill, he has Lone Wolf. If Felix has not used or been a target of an assist skill, then he gets an extra action and self-inflicts isolation in 2 cases. A, if Felix initiates combat, and B, if Felix ends turn without fighting. This extra action triggers before Kanto effects, and it's once per turn with A and B conditions counted separately. This means Felix can get 3 actions per turn by himself. Unlike the other Gale Force type abilities, he can move without fighting, then move again to attack. After attacking, he can move a 3rd time, which means you can use it to retreat or attack a 2nd time. I tested it, and yes, Felix gets the extra action if he destroys a structure. That seems pretty useful considering we just got a new deployable obstacle terrain. Felix also gets to move again if he triggers an Aether Raid's trap tile, cause he didn't fight. That's a pretty useful perk. Now, do keep in mind, you cannot use an assist skill on Felix at all. You can't reposition or smite him forward first, or he doesn't get the extra actions. You can, however, hit him with the AoE of a rally up skill. I suppose as long as Felix isn't the main target, you should be okay. Now for the rest of Lone Wolf, Felix gets a Phantom Speed effect for +7 speed. This is solely to help activate Gus's Percentaire effect. In combat, if above 25% HP or Felix is solo +1, he inflicts -5 debuffs on the foe, deals true damage per hit equal to 20% speed, and gets flat DR equal to 20% speed as well. If the enemy triggers a special, Felix will double the amount of flat DR similar to the CYL A skills. Do note that Felix's true damage and the flat DR will apply to his AoE specials and the enemy AoE specials. The CYL A skill flat DR, for example, does not apply to enemy AoEs. Overall, Lone Wolf is a crazy ability, not the first time we've gotten a brave blue lion who gets true damage and flat DR based on his stat. Felix cranks it up though with bonus flat DR against specials, and his extra actions will make even Edelgard jealous. I did test Felix out with Emblem Celica's ring, and oh boy, it is just as silly as you would expect. Now you're not going to need warping for Felix to be mobile thanks to his new inheritable C skill, Endless Tempest. This is a tier 4 Tempest C skill with no more odd or even condition. It now, every turn, you get +1 movement. If unit or foe initiates combat after moving, you get bonus stats equal to the number of spaces moved, and you neutralize the foe's field balls during combat. Endless Tempest upgrades from Odd or Even Tempest 3. It's usable by melee infantry and flyers. Flyers have range snap to pass movement buffs to other allies, but it does require certain teammates. Infantry can use Assault Troop, but the charge status only lets you move 3 spaces in a line, and it's counted as warp movement, meaning warp bubble counters charge. Endless Tempest can move diagonally if needed, but it's countered by stall. However, if you're Felix who gets an extra action, well, he can move 1 space, get rid of the stall, and then he can move 3 spaces again. It can slow him down, which is better than nothing though. Brave Felix is going to be fairly annoying if you can't tank him and immediately take him out. He doesn't have the most firepower, but half DR piercing with a double will trigger his 1 cooldown gust, plus he has adaptive damage. I would say he wants no follow-up more than Robin. Now besides damage, Felix stacks a decent amount of flat damage reduction, and he can use Gus's unpierceable % DR. CYL is mainly active on initiations, but it's 9 flat DR if Felix moves 3 spaces. In that scenario, Felix can get over 70 speed, which means around 14 flat DR via Lone Wolf. That's about 23 or so flat damage reduction. With double slaying and no guard, Felix will charge Gust on his first attack, which means he'll get that 40% DR for the next hit, assuming he outspeeds. Not a bad amount of percent DR plus flat DR. This is assuming his speed isn't getting debuffed though, and Felix can move 3 spaces to attack. What really makes this Felix a bit scary is that he can initiate from so far away due to the extra action. If you do not KO him in 1 round, he can just reposition or attack another ally. He may also just run away, which is annoying. I don't think the AI is going to retreat, but dealing with any extra action ability is not fun. For other skills, there's not really anything else you need to replace. CYL synergizes with Endless Tempest, which synergizes with Lone Wolf. You could swap to Clash and Oath 4 or Pledge for more stats. If you want cooldown, there's Flash Sparrow or Flashing Blade. Oddspeed Wave 4 can give no follow-up, but it's tough to lose that 3 movement. For other specials, you could do Godlike Reflexes, but I don't know if that's a huge improvement without pre-charging. If you add Emblem Marth, you can get some really silly special options like a 2 cooldown Gale Force or 1 cooldown AoE special. If you can give Felix 1 cooldown from elsewhere, he can proc an AoE, recharge with no guard, and then you can proc a second one in the same turn. If you have 2 cooldown Aether, then with Breath type cooldown, Felix would be able to fire back Aether after 1 hit. Maybe we add Rally Spectrum or the new creation Pulse. On the other side of special cooldown, now with a Tempo Seal, Felix could stall enemy specials if you can somehow get guard. That would require support, but it's an interesting option. Overall, Brave Felix would definitely be a fun all-arounder. I do think he can be stalled and losing a speed battle really hurts him, but he can pose a real threat due to Lone Wolf. I would give him a look at for Gale Force type teams. For example, he can run Double Fury maybe, and what if you combine this with the Emblem Marth 1 cooldown AoE special setup? Feels like that could have fun potential. Defensively, he's not going to be the next Emblem Mike, but you still gotta fight him even with ranged units, and in general, Felix is going to punish higher defense units. Be on the lookout for more new special releases. How much can Felix abuse them with that permanent -2 cooldown? Our first place winner for the women's division is Bernadetta. Brave Bernie is dressed as a 3 houses bow knight. This outfit's color scheme also takes her timeskate outfit with the purple and yellow. As a unit, Bernadetta is a blue bow cavalier. For stats, she has 40 HP, 45 attack, 48 speed, 24 defense, and 28 res. Bernie has speed and defense super boons. Funny enough, her spring ult is just a touch faster due to dragon flowers. For ult skills, Bernie has attack and speed prime 4 and assassin strike. Bernie will need some help to get more statuses for close counter from prime, but she can abuse it once she's got it. As for assassin strike, it's taken a little hit, but it's still a solid damage B skill for a bow cav. Bernie's got a couple B skill perks in her kit. For her weapon, Bernadetta has the Inexhaustible Bow. Even though this is the weapon you get from Leonie's Paralog, it's associated with Saint Indec, and Bernie has a Crest of Indec. It's actually supposed to heal the wielder, but that actually clashes with Bernie's playstyle, so no healing on this version. The Inexhaustible is an 8-mic dual-phase Brave Bow. It has accelerated specials and enables Kanto distance with a max of 3 spaces. If Bernie initiates, or she has an active bonus, she gains bonus stats equal to 5 plus 15% of her speed at start of combat. She deals true damage per hit equal to 20% speed during combat, and she also has 50% DR piercing on every shot. The Inexhaustible is a fairly juiced Brave Bow. Slaying and 50% DR pierce is already great, and Bernie gets extra stats and true damage to make up for the low base might. To help retreat, she also gets Kanto distance for long range hit and run tactics. Bernie's not going to be like Claude, but this is a dual phase Brave Bow, and she has prime for close counter. She's not going down so easily. Bernie's unique C skill is Paranoia. Every turn, Bernie gets the no follow-up status and grants the Paranoia status to herself and allies within 2 spaces. She also deals 1 damage to herself and those allies. If Bernie is within 5 spaces of a foe at start of turn, she also takes any penalties on her and inflicts them onto the closest foe, plus it spreads out 2 spaces. This will not include any penalties being inflicted at the start of the turn. For combat, if Bernie is hurt, she gains plus 5 attack and speed and gets no guard. So, this new Paranoia status is quite strong. If unit is hurt at start of combat, they get plus 5 attack. This is basically Bernie's Persecution Complex personal skill. In addition, if you initiate, you get Desperation. If the foe initiates and your ranges are the same, or the foe has 3 negative statuses active, then the unit gets Vantage. If you trigger Savior, you don't get Vantage though. Paranoia is essentially a Desperation and Vantage status. You need to be hurt for them to activate, and Bernie deals 1 damage to self-proc it for her team. For the Vantage part, it works for melee versus melee or ranged versus ranged. If you want to use close counter or distant counter though, the enemy needs 3 negative statuses active. Paranoia is very appropriately named because I'm still traumatized from the old Vantage meta back in the day. There is no worse feeling than getting Vantaged and then Bernie can set up the entire team with Vantage without anyone fighting beforehand. If you were to give a unit Creation Pulse or something like Rally Spectrum, and then No-See Disrupt Echo, you essentially can turn anyone into a tuned Erica. As for Desperation, I think Fallen Ursula was one of the few ways to get it passively, at 4 HP at least. Brave Bernie is another. As if Hardy Bearing wasn't already needed for a lot of things in this game, Paranoia just adds more to the list. Last skill Bernie has is Inheritable Special. Curved Shot is a 2-cooldown archer only special. It boosts damage by 30% of the greater of the foe's speed or defense stats. If units or foe's specials are ready or have triggered, and the unit can attack in combat, then reduce the next attack by 40% during combat. Curved Shot is a combat art that was in Shadows of Valentia and then came back in 3 houses. It's supposed to be a higher accuracy attack, I believe, but in Fae, it's kind of given the user dodge in the form of that 40% unpierceable DR. Like other similar specials, this one requires someone special to be ready, and for the second condition, the user must be able to make an attack in battle. This means if a melee foe attacks, your archer must have close counter. If the foe has a sweep effect, then you need No-See Disrupt. Damage-wise, Curse Shot is basically Moonbow, and upgrades from it as well. Against speedy enemies though, the damage is going to scale off their speed, and that's going to go with the higher of speed or defense. Deadeye's been around for so long that the guy who brought it into the game already got it refined, so seems like a decent time for another archer only special. Interestingly, because it's a 2-cooldown special, you can't run this with Legu's Friend, which would have been a fun approach. The lower cooldown will play differently than Deadeye depending on your cooldown options, but obviously there's no DR piercing with this. We were talking about how the new Takumi sort of is locked to Deadeye for DR piercing since bow calves have no other options besides outside support. Bernie has DR Pierce on her weapon, so she's fine, but I'm not sure how many others can say the same. Infantry have options, Cavs and Flyers though, not really. Not to mention how many of those guys even want to be tanking anything anyway. If you wanted some unpierceable percent DR, well, this is kinda a must grab. Ironically, the OG Deadeye Archer, Shinon, I feel like could run curve shot better than most. Close counter bow, flat DR from his refine, slaying, and then he can get DR piercing via the tier 4 no follow-up or temple skills. Brave Bernadetta is going to be a fairly deadly archer. Brave bow with 50% pierce is already quite good, and on top she has slaying, true damage, and a big Kanto effect. With Paranoia, Bernie can give her whole team Desperation and Vantage, 2 powerful Beastco effects. Try to be careful with healing or they're not going to trigger. Now every turn, Bernie can also send her penalties back to the enemy. As if he wasn't already hurting, if Bernie was the target of Dual Leon's turn ending status for example, she can actually send it right back and put it on multiple enemies. Be careful if you're going to let Bernie attack you. She's going to do the Uno reverse card with her penalties, and she has no follow-up as Desperation, which means quad attacks. With Slaying Curve Shot, she can also proc it twice when doing quads thanks to no guard. With Assassin's Strike, that's just more true damage and the instant damage. Prime 4 can give close counter, but Bernie needs 2 more statuses. If you want close counter and Vantage, you're going to need to inflict 3 penalties on the foe. That's quite a bit of setup, but then hilarity will ensue. For other skills, you can of course go full Flared Strike. Besides the instant damage, Flame Tiles are still nice to deploy, just keep them away from Bernie. If you want to stack percent DR with Curve Shot, you could do Remote Sparrow. Verge of Death can cleanse debuffs at start of turn for full offense. For B skills, you could do Low Speed and Defense, or you could run a Sweep skill. Sure, Hardy Bearing counters Desperation, but does the enemy also have Nosy Disrupt? This would counter Vantage too if the enemy has Paranoia as well. For a fun option, Ruse 4 inflicts 3 status effects which would proc Paranoia's Vantage for closer distant counter. If you want some extra support, Bernie could sacrifice some damage for the Vantage Cheese setup. For specials, I think Curve Shot's perfectly fine to keep. For Sacred Seals, Blade Session for max attack and speed, or Catch 3 for stats to use with Vantage. Since Bernie is already messing with HP, maybe a wonky use for Fury Recoil? Overall though, Brave Bernie should be a solid Brave Bow archer. She can create some fun playstyles with Paranoia, although a lot of people should already have plans for Hardy Bearing on the team. Regardless, Bernie can certainly open up some cheesy strats, and she can even flip penalties back on the enemy. Our last unit for today is Brave Alfonse. Despite Fire Emblem being all about main Lord Clash Change promotions, we still haven't gotten anything for our main Asker trio. Even Veronica got a story power-up. Brave Alfonse might actually be the closest thing we get to a promotion. Now, Alfonse is dressed like his father, King Gustav. We've gotten a good bit of child-parent outfit swaps, but this one definitely feels appropriate considering Alfonse literally is going to be the next king. Alfonse will wield Gustav's axe and even has a special similar artwork pose, which absolutely goes hard. This is easily one of my favorite pieces of art from the game. With the update, we got a bit of a neat callback. Brave Alfonse has a unique quote when entering a map, and it's one of his best lines from the main story.
I'm going to kill you too.
If you have forgotten, this was said by Alfonse to Letizia back in Book 6. Basically, Alfonse is fronting on Letizia to basically imply that he's not Mr. Nice Guy so he can throw her off. Letizia brings up the death of Gustav, and Alfonse says that he indeed did kill him to take the throne. Basically, Alfonse don't give a damn and he's gonna kill Letizia too, hence the line. It's an act, but that line with his smiling sprite makes Alfonse look absolutely unhinged. One of Alfonse's best lines throughout the years, but the fact it's actually sort of tied to Gustav makes it even funnier with this ult. Now as a unit, Brave Alfonse is an ex-Cavalier with 41 HP, 46 attack, 16 speed, 47 defense, and 40 res. Alfonse has attack and res super boons. Very min-max, and I believe Alfonse will be the highest res ex-Cavalry unit. He's actually like top 5-ish highest res ex unit in general because the bar is so low for the class. For ult skills, Alfonse has Breath of Life 4, and that's it. When that's the only ult skill on the base kit, you know things are already pretty spicy. Alfonse's new Majestic Glitner has 16 might. Every turn if an ally is within 3 rows or 3 columns, Alfonse gets plus 60 to his field buffs and plus 1 movement for the turn. If his special is at max cooldown value, he gets minus 1 cooldown. This weapon enables Kanto distance plus 1 with a max of 4 spaces. It grants accelerated specials, and if Alfonse initiates or he has an ally in the 3 row or 3 column range, he gets bonus defensive res equal to X and inflicts defensive res debuffs on the foe equal to X. X is the number of allies within 3 rows or 3 columns, centered on Alfonse, times 3. It has a base of +5. If Alfonse were to have 3 allies in the range, he gets +14 defense and res and inflicts -14 defense and res. Moving on, Alfonse gets true damage and flat DR equal to 10% defense, he has DR piercing specials, and after combat, if his special is at max value, he gets that -1 cooldown again. Essentially, Alfonse has times pulse 4, maybe related to Lord Asker. He then just gets all the defense and res and is a 4 movement cavalier with conto distance. His true damage and flat DR scale with his high defense stat, and while res debuffs don't directly help Alfonse, I assume it's here to counter regular scale effects. Alfonse basically creates a +28 defense res advantage with Glittner. Along with trying to out-res dragons for scale, he can also out-defense all those other Breath of Life 4 units. For his unique special, Alfonse has thrown Open the Future into the trash, sorry Leaf. He now has Makings of a King, which is a 2 cooldown special. It boosts damage by 30% of Alfonse's defense plus defense grade talent. We'll come back to this new keyword. In addition, Alfonse gets unpierceable 40% damage reduction for all attacks in combat equal to 40 minus 10 times the special cooldown value. This is just a convoluted way of saying Alfonse gets 40% DR if his special is ready, and 30% DR if it's on 1 cooldown. With Slaying, you can't go any higher than that. Now for every turn passed, Alfonse will gain +2 great talent stats to attack defense and res, and grant +1 great talent to attack defense and res for allies within 3 rows or 3 columns. After combat, if Makings of a King were to trigger, Alfonse gains +4 great talent stats and allies gain +2. Essentially, Great Talent is a new game mechanic. It is simply permanent bonus flat stats that last the entire battle. You cannot go higher than 99 for each stat, that is the cap even with Great Talent. These permanent flat stats are not field balls and they are not treated as bonus effects. From this scale, Alfonse literally gains +2 attack, defense and res every turn. His allies gain +1. There is a cap from this skill and it's +20 for Alfonse, +10 for allies. To accelerate the great talent gains, you can proc Makings of a King. Alfonse has Slaying plus times pulse, meaning this special is ready to go every fight. It also has full DR piercing. The pre-charge means Alfonse gets the 40% DR unless you run into Scowl. This is a pretty absurd skill. Very fittingly, Alfonse is phased to God after God and he's still trucking. Using permanent bonus stats to show his growth is kinda neat. Alfonse will be a trove of skill inheritance, and you can basically grab all 3 of his passive skills very easily. His new A skill is Fortifications, which is another Fortress Defense and Res upgrade. We literally just got Stronghold, and here's another tier 4 side grade. Fortifications inflicts -5 flat attack and grants +7 flat defense and res. If unit is on a Divine Vein, they get distant counter. When initiating, unit gains +6 defense res and reduces damage from specials by 10. After combat and after acting, the unit will deploy Divine Vein Stone to all tiles within 2 spaces. Fortifications is inheritable by melee units only, which may make some people sad. It's quite powerful though, giving distant counter as long as you're on a Divine Vein. This doesn't have to be stone terrain, it can be Robin's ice terrain or flame tiles. Now, if you don't know what Divine Vein Stone does, well, Fortifications basically grants the effects while initiating. +6 defense and res and +10 flat DR against specials. When you're on the actual stone terrain, you also get 50% DR against AoE specials, which can be quite valuable. The idea of this skill is to initiate, then deploy stone terrain for distant counter. It's a very cool mixed phase skill, and you can deploy the terrain multiple times if you have extra actions. Considering you need to initiate, Fortification seems pretty perfect for tanky cows. If they survive their initiation, they can lay down terrain and gain DC. Certainly an interesting new A skill for sure. Last new skill on this banner is Reopening, kind of a funny name because it's basically Guard 5, or well, it's another tier 4 Guard B skill. Reopening is usable by all melee units and builds out of Guard 3. If above 25% HP, inflict -5 attack and guard on the foe. Instead of Guard 4's % DR, Reopening offers true damage and flat DR for all attacks. It scales off defense, and if unit can make a follow-up or has brave hits, then it's only 10% defense. If you don't have either of those though, then it's 20% defense. Reopening is the flat DR answer if you just don't think Guard 4's % DR is worth running. Personally, I think you should always try to get % DR plus flat DR, however, when everyone has piercing, it's a tough ask. Alfonse has unpierceable % DR, so Reopening is pretty dang good for him, and he already has 10% defense true damage and flat DR from his weapon. If he doesn't double, then it's 30% defense scaling for both, which is quite nice. The guard effect is good to have, but obviously it's not the most dependable without, say, tempo. Even then, you simply can't stop no guard effects anyway. I don't know how many units will want reopening, but it feels like an alternative to Legu's friend for the non-infantry. It is defense scaling only though, and again, if you use follow-up attacks or brave hits, then it's a weaker effect. Like with 70 defense, that's only 7 true damage and 7 flat DR. I don't know if that's worth it, especially for say a Wyvern Rift Flyer. If you have no chance at doubling though, then maybe it's a better deal. Brave King Alfonse looks like an incredible unit. Great talent could be an Alfonse only thing for a while, but I do expect to see it pop up on other units eventually. It's free permanent stats, and Alfonse literally gets stronger every turn. He precharges his DR piercing special after every fight, and proccing Makings of a King will grant even more great talent stats. If Alfonse initiates, he can deploy Divine Vein Stone after. He also is just a 4 movement Cavalier with Contour Distance +1, which is both insane on their own. Alfonse is essentially the most Duso of all Dusos we've ever seen. Super min-maxed pure 10 Cavalier. Fortifications and reopening are very interesting additions to this class type, and of course the guy has the insane Breath of Life 4 for sustain. Do note, you need to be within 2 spaces of an ally for the healing. 40% unpierceable DR plus 30% defense's flat DR is going to be a lot to chew through, and Alfonse just bulks up after every single fight. I like that he inflicts res debuffs because that's probably just to avoid scal effects. Of course, if you got Hexblade, go for it if you can. For other skills, you don't need to use fortifications, but it does feel like the flat defense and res is being used to lower AoE damage, plus maybe avoid enemy ploy type debuffs. You can just run Stronghold instead though. If you don't need Breath of Life, I would say Alfonse is an okay ploy 4 user himself. In terms of A skills, Excel offers more damage for those one-shot attacks, and the flat DR applies to regular hits. Alfonse also can move 4 spaces to max out the effect. If you just want to lay back, nothing wrong with regular distant counter. For this Alfonse, I don't really see any better B skill. Reopening plus Makings of a King is very good together. In the C slot, you could run Defensive Smoke for Pathfinder. Panic Smoke is an excellent mixed phase effect for just more stat craziness. Works nicely with fortifications. For seals, attack and defense clash or solo would be fine. Squad A seal would be nice, and honestly, maybe a deflect seal can work. Hardy Bearing is another option. In conclusion, Brave Alfonse is going to be a fun unit, stats on great talent stats. Many have tried, but Alfonse is still standing till this day, and that's only made him stronger. He's not going to be a pure wall, but he's quite sturdy, and he has long-range threats with a solid burst special ready at any time. Looking forward to the funny numbers on the screen when great talent is fully stacked up. That'll be it for this banner breakdown. Choose Your Legends 8 is finally here, and it's another fun batch. Personally, I do like trying to get all 4 CYL winners, but I am going all in on Brave Alfonse for summons. I kind of want his fodder skills, but I want to plus 10 him at some point, so that's going to be a tough decision. Don't forget to use your free pick or save it if you want. Next up, the random surprise Grand Hero battle unit for this year is Panette from Engage. She's got a literal Berserker Axe, and Panette indeed gets some fun crit related abilities. We'll talk about her more next time. Thank you for watching, good luck on your summons, and I will see you in the next video.